What's it like to be a woman in the world of politics today and be young? Stay with us for a candid conversation with the mayor of La Porte, Indiana, Blair Milo, next on Lakeshore Focus.
Programming is supported by NIPSCO. Today's young minds are constantly reimagining what our world will be like tomorrow. That's why NIPSCO is upgrading its infrastructure now, so we're ready for whatever comes next. More information at nipsco.com/future.
Welcome again to Lakeshore Focus, a weekly show highlighting the key issues, important events, and interesting people in our region. I'm Keith Kirkpatrick. Our emphasis this month is on women in roles of leadership. Today we focus on the world of politics and being in elected office. What is it like for a woman who aspires to be a highly effective public servant? Well, let's meet one who is viewed in that category. We have with us today Mayor Blair Milo from the City of La Porte. So I know that you have kind of an interesting way that you always start your speeches or your little presentations, right? So I thought I'd start the show the same way today. So we can't stand up, but so we put our arms out, right?
Absolutely.
So we move our arms in a big circle, right?
Do some physical activity. Get some of our 30 minutes in.
So we have to roll our necks around a little bit, right? Is the roll the head thing? So, okay, we do our shoulders up, shoulders down. This is good.
Absolutely.
So is this a good start?
It's definitely helping loosen me up for some activities later today.
Why do you always do that? When I've seen you do this a number of times, you always start your.
It's a passion area that I have. That there's been significant conversations over the years about healthcare and how we pay for it and various other components of it, but. Experts recommend that if you include about 30 minutes of some sort of physical activity that's just as simple as those ones that we just did, that it greatly reduces your risk towards chronic disease. Now, certainly it also requires some attention to nutrition as well, but just incorporating 30 minutes each day of some sort of activity greatly influences, I think, just the happiness that people feel overall. And so then that also contributes towards lowering healthcare costs. And as you look at some of the nerdy components of healthcare and the larger macro policies, about just over 80% of our healthcare spending across the United States is spent on managing chronic disease, almost all of which can be prevented.
So now I understand why you do this. Mm-hmm. So it's to have a healthier community, but the other is a little self-serving, right? You loosen the crowd up so that they're in a better mood to listen to you, right?
Absolutely.
You don't have so many grouches.
And it gets the blood flowing, and people start thinking, and they feel engaged with the conversation.
Another good thought, you get people thinking instead of just reacting.
Absolutely.
I see it now. I'm going to try to do this more often, I think. But this is a good idea.
There's a method to my madness.
So you told me before, and I don't think you care, but you're 33. Mm-hmm. How does that rank in terms of mayors for, women in leadership? I mean, you kind of like, for young, are you down that 10% group?
I'm the youngest female mayor, as far as I know, in the state of Indiana. I don't know about across the country, but there are now some younger mayors than myself that in this last election in 2015, then some younger folks came in. And when I was elected, though, there were 5 of us that came in as under 30 when we were elected, and we've kept in close touch with each other. And I haven't had a chance to meet some of the new folks as a part of our young caucus, but I know they're doing great things.
So how old were you when you decided to run then? 26?
I decided that this was going to be what seemed to be the path for my life, and everything when would have been 2010. So it was fall of 2010, and so I would have been 27 at the time.
What made you think that this was your path?
This was not anything I had ever anticipated would be an opportunity I'd get to have. That I've always been a government nerd, that I find policy very interesting, and I had some great opportunities to learn and serve with some amazing individuals. That I spent a semester doing an internship with Senator Lugar, and it was through that time period that I really fell in love with what government could do, but I always thought that I'd be a staffer of some sort or kind of stay in the background, that I'm not naturally inclined to some of the probably personality tendencies that you would usually see amongst some elected officials. And
You must
so
have got over some of those.
it's definitely been a learning curve for me. It's been a growth opportunity, and ultimately what prompted me to get involved was I saw my hometown, La Porte, struggling, and we had some significant financial challenges, and I had been involved for a little while as I was transitioning off of active service to reserve status, and planning to continue a career in either defense consulting or some other capacity with government work, and just didn't see any kinds of the steps needing to be taken with improving the challenges that La Porte was facing. And the aha moment that I had was when I was riding the metro in DC. I think I was coming home from work one day and thinking about what was going on back at home and thinking, man, somebody really needs to do something here.
I need to go home and run for mayor.
Well, it came to, well, when has it ever been your model, Blair, to say somebody else needs to do something? What are you going to do about it? And that started me thinking of, well, what is it that needs to happen? And for me, it came down to a question of leadership and saying that we need someone to be able to remind the community of all the talent and major attributes that we have, and rebuild some of the positivity that I think that should exist here, because we have so many assets, but we've had some struggles, and so we need to capitalize on our assets and be able to overcome these challenges that we're facing and take those on.
Have you always seen yourself as a leader?
I think my perspective of that really grew when I joined the Navy, that it wasn't necessarily something I saw beforehand. Now looking back, I think that I probably had some tendencies towards it earlier on.
So this wasn't in high school for you where they said, oh, Blair, she's a leader in the high school?
I think maybe in some ways they might have. There were some initiatives that I took on that were causes that I was interested in, but I didn't fit into any particular clique or group or anything like that.
Definitely not the mean girl group, right?
No,
Okay.
I wasn't in the mean girl group. I wasn't really an athlete. I wasn't a musician. I had friends in all of those groups, and but then I was kind of the leader of our group of friends, of scheduling what it is we're going to do this weekend and coordinating all the logistics. And so I think there's probably some tendencies.
Natural tendencies there. So in the years that you've just been kind of reflecting upon this leadership thing, is there somebody specifically that you already mentioned, Senator Lugar, but somebody who's just kind of stands out, you go, that's really kind of an inspiring role model to me?
I have a number of them that
Pick one.
I would say one of the folks that I draw back to things that he told me and referenced, it would be now Admiral Gene Black. He was my first ship captain. And so at the time he was Commander Gene Black, and we've stayed in touch, and I've been fortunate to continue to learn from him for many years.
Do you see a significant difference today in a woman's role as a leader and a man's role as a leader?
I think there's different approaches that each person takes to leadership, and certainly gender influences some of those perspectives, and then the audience of whom you're leading is going to be a key component to that as well. So I think it kind of depends on the leadership role and then the individual.
So do you feel there's any time that plays against you at all?
There can be times that maybe you have a tough audience of which you're trying to explain some types of things, or of which you've been charged with trying to carry out a mission of some sort, and maybe there's just specific individuals that can be challenging to deal with, but sometimes it's a gender bias, sometimes it may be an age issue, sometimes they may just decide they don't like people with blue eyes, I don't know. And so you have to work through some of those challenges and try and find a common ground.
So what's the approach you take when you're dealing with that person who you can definitely tell is looking at you and she's a girl, she's really young, you know, I am not taking you seriously, you know, because of those things?
I enjoy those opportunities, quite honestly, because I enjoy the challenge, absolutely. It brings brings out the best in my game, because I then look forward to the opportunity of being able to prove that person wrong, and not because I'm trying to put it in anybody's face, but to have the work be able to speak for itself. And that's always been the focus that I've had in any of those situations, whether somebody has a gender bias or an age bias or whatever it may be, to then just make sure that I work that much harder and that much, coordinate the team that much better to ensure that the work speaks for itself in a way that's going to then represent folks well of either my gender or age or whatever else I may be representing.
Right now for you, what do you consider to be maybe the biggest challenge in front of you? Just like right now, this is the thing that kind of keeps me awake.
I think there's a lot of struggle right now in the conversations that people have about government and understanding public service and perspectives on people in public service. And certainly there have been some questionable individuals that have been involved, but I think on the whole there's a lot of people who are trying to do good things in government service, and this idea of politics has just become such a negative connotation that folks don't trust people in politics anymore, or think that there's just very different motives behind individuals who are trying to serve in elected capacity. And so I think that's a troubling trend for individuals that we see getting involved in public office, and then the impression of the public that we're all trying to serve.
I see that today, and you're right. People are very distrusting of government. I mean, all you hear is government should downsize, you guys spend way too much money, it just goes on. The list is, and therefore you work for them because you're an elected official, so you are the government, so
Right.
I don't trust you. So what do you do to try to move past that? Get that conversation in a different direction?
Sure. I try to be as transparent as possible, to provide as much information about all the initiatives, the projects that we're undertaking, and why we're trying to move those kinds of things forward. I think a big struggle that many of us have is that it's very complex and very detailed. There's a lot of layers, and it takes patience and understanding some of these nuances of policy initiatives. And it can be tough to be able to keep somebody's interest throughout an explanation of all these myriad steps that one may have to take to move an initiative forward.
But then they sometimes say, well, that's just an excuse. It's all and that's part of the problem. It's the bureaucracy that you
Right.
guys have created. So you're creating your own problems.
And I think there's some truth to the statements of folks who are frustrated with seeing so many layers and so many folks having to be involved in a process. That being said, at a local level especially, there's a lot of times that we can't control how state government does things or how federal government may do things. And so there's only certain things that we're able to address, and we have to work within the framework of what we're provided.
I saw you speak recently to a group of high school students, and you talked about this experience you had this past, I guess, several months about the Republican convention and being invited and deciding not to go and so forth. Through that process, what have you kind of learned about you?
I think I've learned a lot more about thickening my skin a little bit, and what some of the consequences are of when you have to stand up for things that you believe in. And I still stand behind the decisions and actions that I took throughout the process. Certainly learned a lot about how information gets conveyed and timing of information. And just from my own perspective, I think I've grown a lot in understanding some of the nature of potentially hardball politics.
So is that skin thicker now?
I do believe so. It was fairly thick to begin with, but you learn.
So what piece of your values do you think you were challenged the hardest, or which one even strengthened for you through this process?
It was very interesting to see some of the conversation that happened, and and I begrudge no one any of their opinions on any of this. In fact, in response to some of the discussion that was had, I wanted to make a point to say thank you to those who have disagreed with some of the actions or have a perspective on things that may be different than mine, or to those who are in agreement with some of the things, ultimately because it means you're engaged in the process. And as long as we continue to be engaged and try and understand why decisions are being made, who stands for what kinds of decisions, then that's when our liberty, when our concept of what this experiment of a republic that this country stands for can continue to thrive. The danger comes when people disengage, and that goes back to some of my discussion just a moment ago of the concern that I have of people viewing politics and government service so negatively, is that if you get to this point where you've decided that everyone's corrupt and then you just don't want to engage, then that's when we have a real challenge to the type of system of which America was founded upon.
You know, that answer was, the first part of the answer was kind of the intellectual part of, hey, I respect somebody else's opinion and so forth. But how do you deal with that person who is, it's not even rational, it's just, they just are attacking you and saying all kinds of negative things about you with almost no basis for it?
Sure.
It's just, how do you deal with it? Because you see that a lot today in politics.
Sure.
Oh my gosh, I just don't like you,
right,
for whatever reason, and I'm just going to tear you apart.
And first of all, most of those folks don't even know me. And as I've seen some conversations about things, there have been times where people want to say that Blair Milo is making terrible decisions on things, and they'll say, he did this or he did that, and I go back to that and say, you are so ill-informed about this situation that you don't even know that I'm a female. So, you take it all with a grain of salt. And then for the folks that may want to try and provide some alternate viewpoint of things, I enjoy that. I enjoy the intellectual challenge of thinking through, am I wrong on this? Have I not looked at this in a different kind of way? Because I do want to try and think through what somebody else's perspective may be, because I think through that sort of deliberative process is how we arrive at greater policy opportunities and greater initiatives. But to the folks that you're just never going to win over, you have to just say, you're not going to win them all.
They exist.
Right.
Have there been times where you felt you're being a female, where you just thought, hey, what's going on with me now? It is really helpful that I am a woman. It's my advantage here.
I think that there's certainly different perspectives and approaches that women take to conversations, and particularly to policy type building, and of building teams and camaraderie, and I think that can be helpful. There was just an article in The Atlantic in, I think, one of their recent episodes that talks about whether if we had more women in elected capacity, would we see more bipartisanship? And it was interesting to see from that perspective that yes, maybe, kind of depending upon which side of the aisle the women may come from. So there's certainly a perspective that can be had there. But I don't know that I look at it of, boy, I'm glad I'm a female in order to handle this in a different perspective. That's nothing I was going to be able to change.
Boy, I enjoy being a girl, kind of thing. Almost wanted to break into the song.
Well, I've been very blessed to have a great group of girlfriends and strong women that I look up to, and colleagues that I'm able to interact with. And so certainly there are experiences that we have that are a little bit different than some of our male counterparts might have. But I have equally strong relationships with male colleagues and friends and family members as well.
Yeah, I think that gender issue is becoming less than it used to be. But what's interesting, and I don't know if you notice this too, but I just seem to notice a higher percentage of women stepping up into roles of leadership, government, business, all kinds of places. And I sometimes wonder where the guys are. It's like they just seem to be absent, or the amount of them is pretty thin.
Well, I think that's happening in a
You notice
lot
that too?
of different ways. I don't know that it's happening as much in elected capacity, which it is another passion area of mine to try and encourage women to be involved in government service and to consider being a candidate for elected office. That research shows that it takes on average 3 times for a woman to be asked before she'll start to actually consider running for office. And when you look at where the United States ranks in female representation, when you look at elected types of capacities of all the countries across the world, I think we're around 95th in the world of elected female representation. Countries that are doing better than us of having female in elected capacity, places like Afghanistan and Iraq. Now, those are places that they have constitutional mandates as a part of some of the changes that have come along. But it brings into perspective when you start hearing some of those statistics of just how underrepresented women are in elected capacity.
It'd be interesting to kind of know if that goes back to almost a historical perspective. They at least used to have queens and some women in very powerful positions.
Very true.
That kind of didn't happen in this country in the really early days for a long time.
Certainly.
So where's Blair Milo kind of headed down the road in terms of your aspirations, or just where do you hope you are going to be someday?
I wish I knew the answer to that question.
Do you get it asked very often?
I do, of what's the plan for what's next, and certainly I have some of those thoughts myself of, am I preparing myself appropriately for trying to take on the next challenge, and so then what is that challenge that you're trying to work towards? I also received some great advice from a gentleman I hold in very high regard, would be another leader that I would look to for things and inspiration, would be Purdue president, former Governor Mitch Daniels, that had an opportunity to chat with him about some career mentoring and ideas of that nature. And he gave me great advice that he says, focus on doing the best job that you can in the job that you're in, and you'll find that opportunities will present themselves. And so that's been something I really took to heart, to make sure that we're doing the best that we can in the city of La Porte to really achieve all the goals that we set for ourselves and then some. And then from that process, I'm sure that there will be a clear indication at the right time as to what the next challenge is that I look to take on. I have a heart for service because it's just a key component of my personality. I get so much out of it, and being able to serve in those kinds of capacities. And I think I have a talent for policy building and an interest in it. So I look to continue in that capacity in some way, but I'm not sure what the next thing is going to be.
So we're at the last moment here. So just a wrap-up thought from you, a woman in leadership. Just a piece of wisdom that you would pass on to other women who want to step up into leadership roles?
I would say that it's certainly something that's daunting, especially that there are some challenges, and as you look at the landscape, particularly for elected capacity, that it's not an easy road to take. But that being said, that if you don't do it, who else will? And that would be something I would encourage folks to think about.
I like that. You kind of started with that, about the importance of stepping in, and you ended with it. So thank you for being on the show, and we are going to continue to watch where it's going to happen to Blair Milo down the road, because I think there's going to be some interesting opportunities for you.
Well, thank you so much for having me.
You bet. Thanks. If you don't stand for something, you'll fall for anything. Some form of this quote has been attributed to Alexander Hamilton, Peter Marshall, and Malcolm X. No matter the source, it's a strong statement. What do you stand for? This is a question which I've used in interviews of candidates who are applying to leadership programs. The answers are always interesting and offer the basis for their actions and thoughts. I am fortunate to hear the responses of these bright, aspiring, and strong individuals, but I'm not sure everyone is able to address that question with substance. I'm afraid that if I ask this question of what do you stand for to the average person, I might hear, I'm not sure. What do you mean? I've never thought about it. I actually think most people stand for something, they just may not know what it is or have never explored or grown their foundational values. If this is true, they don't stand for something and will fall for anything. Part of defining one's values and convictions, that which we stand on, are the testing experiences we have during our lives. These are the times when we are challenged to stand firm and tall upon that which we believe to be important. Of course, there are the moments when we are commended, complimented, and encouraged for our commitments. Hopefully, there are many of these occasions because they affirm and strengthen our convictions. Yet the negative experiences can be the times when we grow the most. I think there are 3 levels of responses from those who do not agree with us or want to oppose us. Level 1 is, I don't like you or don't want to be around you. Second level is, I hate you, no, despise and detest you. Finally, the most devastating, I will destroy you physically or psychologically. I deeply admire the individuals who will stand against all 3 levels. I am inspired particularly by the courage of those who can withstand level 3. Through these experiences, our convictions can be abandoned and we fall, or they grow stronger and become the rock-solid foundation of who we are. We hope you enjoyed our show and we appreciate you joining us each week. Your feedback and comments are always appreciated. You can email us at focus@lakeshorepublicmedia.org or reach us on our website. Both are listed on your screen. If you have missed any of our shows, they are available on the website. Click on the TV tab, scroll down to Lakeshore Focus, that's alphabetical to the letter L. Then you see this face. Take a look at the long list of past shows you can watch. I guarantee you will find a topic that intrigues you. Join us next week for another Lakeshore Focus. Until then, I'm Keith Kirkpatrick saying, make a positive difference in our world today.
Programming is supported by NIPSCO. Today's young minds are constantly reimagining what our world will be like tomorrow. That's why NIPSCO is upgrading its infrastructure now, so we're ready for whatever comes next. More information at nipsco.com/future.